Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a class of drugs that's doing more than just treating heart disease. It's completely changing the game. This is the story of the PCSK9 revolution. So let's start with a really powerful question. What if I told you that your body has a built-in system for clearing out bad cholesterol, but something is constantly hitting the off switch? And what if we found a way to disable that switch for good? Well, that simple idea is right at the heart of this incredible medical breakthrough. To really get why this new approach is such a big deal, we first have to talk about the challenge we've been up against and the limits of our best treatments so far. Okay, this is something we've known for a long time. High levels of what we call LDL, or bad cholesterol, are the main culprit behind the plaque that builds up in our arteries. That buildup is what leads to most heart attacks and strokes, and it makes high LDL a massive threat to public health. For decades, our go-to weapon in this fight has been a class of drugs called statins. And don't get me wrong, they're amazing. They've saved millions and millions of lives. But here's the catch. For our highest-risk patients, statins often just aren't enough. There are millions of people who, even on a max dose of a statin, still have dangerously high LDL levels. This leaves them with what we call a high residual risk of having that heart attack or stroke we're trying to prevent. So, with people's lives still very much on the line, scientists went on a hunt for another piece of the puzzle. And what they found was a kind of hidden culprit, a protein that was secretly working against our body's own defenses. And that protein is called PCSK9. Now, it's something your own liver makes, and its job is to regulate cholesterol in your body. But, as you're about to see, when it comes to heart disease, that's a regulation we really, really want to shut down. Okay, so here's how this saboteur actually works. Think of your liver cells as being covered in these little hands, which are called LDL receptors. Their job is to reach out into your bloodstream and just grab all that bad cholesterol to get rid of it. But PCSK9 comes along, latches onto these hands, and basically tells the liver cell, hey, destroy this whole thing. The result is simple and it's devastating. Fewer hands doing the cleanup means your bad cholesterol just keeps rising. But, once scientists identified the villain, they could finally start designing a weapon to take it out. A very specific, very targeted weapon. And that brings us to the hero of the story, this new class of drugs called PCSK9 inhibitors. They are designed with one simple goal in mind: stop PCSK9 from destroying those all-important LDL receptors. And the way they do it involves two brilliant and actually pretty different strategies. This is where the science just gets so cool. On one side, you've got what I like to call the interceptors. These are drugs like Evolocumab and Alirocumab. They're antibodies that basically act like bodyguards, patrolling your bloodstream to find PCSK9 and neutralize it on the spot. But then you have a newer approach, the silencer, with a drug called Inclisiran. This one is super clever. It uses a technology that goes right to the source, the liver, and tells the cellular factory to just stop making PCSK9 altogether. So one mops up the threat, the other just shuts down the production line. So what happens when you free up all those LDL receptors to do their job? Well, the impact is nothing short of staggering. For patients who are already taking statins, adding a PCSK9 inhibitor can slash their bad cholesterol by an additional 50 to 70%. We're talking about getting LDL down to levels that we once thought were basically impossible to achieve. Okay, so the numbers look fantastic, but here's the real billion-dollar question. Does dropping cholesterol this much actually save people's lives? Well, the data from huge clinical trials is it's overwhelming. And we're not talking about small studies here. The evidence we have is rock solid. It comes from these massive global gold standard trials like Fourier and Odyssey outcomes, which together involved tens of thousands of the highest risk patients you can find. And the results were completely definitive. In these trials, patients who were taking PCSK9 inhibitors saw their risk of having a heart attack plummet by a stunning 27% compared to those taking a placebo. And it wasn't just about protecting the heart. We saw the same powerful effect in the brain. The risk of having the most common type of stroke was cut by a really robust 22%. So when you bundle all the big bad events together, we're talking heart attack, stroke, needing urgent bypass surgery, the whole shebang, the overall risk dropped by a solid 15 to 20%. Let me tell you, in the world of preventative cardiology, that is a massive, massive win. These results really aren't just numbers on a chart. They represent a fundamental shift, a whole new era in how we treat and, more importantly, prevent heart disease for the people who need it most. So who exactly are these drugs for? Well, they are an absolute lifeline for the highest risk groups out there. This includes people who've already had a heart attack or stroke, folks with genetic conditions that give them sky-high cholesterol from birth, patients who just can't tolerate statins, and especially those who need to get their risk down aggressively right after a cardiac event. And here's something that might seem like a small detail, but in the real world, it's a huge deal: the dosing. The antibody drugs are injections you take every 2 or 4 weeks. But that silencer drug, Inclisiran, it's just one shot every 6 months. That kind of convenience can literally be the difference between a patient sticking with a life-saving treatment or not. And maybe the most crucial piece of the puzzle is this: access. When these drugs first came out, they were incredibly expensive. But since 2018, the prices have dropped dramatically. We're talking 70 to 80%, which is finally putting this revolutionary therapy within reach for the millions of people who so desperately need it.
It really all comes down to this simple but powerful mantra that drives everything we do in cardiology today. When it's about bad cholesterol, the lower you can get it, and the longer you can keep it there, the better off you're going to be. And PCSK9 inhibitors are the incredible tool that finally allows us to make that principle a reality for pretty much everyone.
This incredible leap forward leaves us with one final and really exciting question. Now that we have the tools to push cholesterol down to levels that were once pure science fiction, what's the next frontier? What's the next step in our quest to finally eliminate heart disease for good?